Welcome to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, bringing you the right information right now to sculpt a more meaningful and memorable life of success. Join us each week to discover gems to help you grow your mental toughness, expand your will to win, and multiply your results. It's never been easier to learn what to do and how to do it to succeed at what you choose to do. This is truly an experience you won't find anywhere else. Now, here's your host, the Success Sculptor himself, Stephen Pierce.
All right, everybody, I'm your host, Stephen Pierce, and welcome back to another episode of the Success Sculpting Show. And I have a pro in the house for you today, and I do literally mean a pro, because he is an accomplished pro athlete. He is an MLB executive. And for those that don't know what that is Major League Baseball. He's a Major League Baseball executive and a business developer. I'm talking about Bo Porter, and this guy embodies how to empower one's life to its fullest. Hey, listen. Bo earned his communications degree from the University of Iowa in 1994, but he was drafted by the Chicago Cubs in 1993. So Bo played in the major leagues for the Cubs, the Oakland A's, and the Texas Rangers. He also coached for the Miami Marlins, the Arizona Diamondbacks, Washington Nationals, and the Atlanta Braves. And at the age of 39, Bo was named manager of the Houston Astros, and at the time was the youngest manager in Major League Baseball. And he then completed the trifecta of the MLB hierarchy when he was named Special Assistant General Manager of the Atlanta Braves last year in 2016. Bo was also the founder and chairman of the board for the Stacy and Bo Porter Self Foundation, founding president of Real Excellence, Inc., CEO of Bo Porter Enterprise, and the author of 2 books, Real Life Empowered and The End Game. Welcome to the show, the coach of champions, Bo Porter. How's it going, man?
Oh, it's going great, Stephen. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am absolutely honored to be joining you this morning and be on your show. And congratulations on all the work in which you've been doing. It's again just an honor to be on this show with you.
Man, you know, it's an honor to have you on. I've been looking at you. You have so much information that I want to extract with the time that we have together. And being that you are the coach of champions, I'm going to go ahead and give you the opportunity to coach our listeners. And I want to start with this, because if anybody goes on to YouTube, and I encourage you all to do it, just go and search Bo Porter gets ejected. Right. So here's the thing I want to ask you, because
yes,
you're extremely passionate, and people look at you as like, man, this guy has some passion. And in life, a lot of people, they have these passions, but sometimes these passions are kind of stuck in the corner somewhere, and they're afraid to pursue them because of their fear of rejection. So here's my question. How does being passionate, when you're standing up for something you believe in, you're on the sidelines and you see a call and it's like, hey, that call, the umpires got that wrong, and you run out there and you're fighting for what you believe is right, and you get ejected. How does getting ejected when you're passionate about something in baseball relate to a person being rejected in their life when they're pursuing something that they're passionate about?
Well, I'll start by saying this. I've said this many times before. When people ask me, what do you think your greatest strength is? I say my passion. They say, what do you think your greatest weakness is? I say my passion.
Okay.
So it's, I think a lot of it starts with understanding the situation. When you look at baseball and as a manager, you understand the scope of your job. One is that of a father figure or a protector of the 25 men in which you've been charged to lead.
Right.
With that being said, a lot of times, right, wrong, or indifference, the biggest component of that factor at the time is you standing up for your players. And whenever you ask someone a question about leadership, one of the things in which the people that you are charged to lead, that they will question themselves or ask each and every day is, will this person protect me? It's almost like with your kids. They want to feel like they are protected. So sometimes you have to take a bullet in a situation where a call may not go a way in which you may think it should go. And from a standpoint of sending a message, not just to your team, but also to the rest of the league, that we're not going to allow anyone just to walk over us, and I'm going to stand up for what's right as it relates to our team and our organization.
That's interesting, because here's what I want to ask you, because I want to relate this to business. Let's just say you have a team and in your house, in your company, people are not operating at the level you know they're supposed to. They're distracted. They're underperforming. They're being lazy. And you, as the leader or the leadership team, you have this huge passion because you know what the company's capable of. You know that you can change lives with your products or your services, and you passionately go at the team. See, when you're yelling at the umpire isn't getting into his feelings, in sense of, don't talk to me like that, because, hey, look, you're going at it. He's going at it. It's a really intense moment. Help me to understand when this passion as it relates to business, because you're fighting for something. You're fighting for your family. You're fighting for your future. You're fighting for your industry. How? Because see, here's the thing. Somebody can look at you, and we know it's not true, but somebody can look at you in those clips or in a live game and say, man, that dude, Bo, he's mean. He's angry. He's vicious. But really, that's not you. That's a part of you that comes out because of, just like you were talking about, you're protecting your team. You're going to argue against something that you believe is not right. You're not going to just sit there and let it just roll over you. So help me and all those that are listening that are business owners understand, how do you use that passion? Because a lot of people are afraid to use that passion because people get offended easily. The umpire doesn't have time to be offended. He has the power to eject you, but he has to keep rolling on, right? So, in a world where everyone looks for something to be offended by, they look for things to complain about, and it kind of constricts your passion because, well, don't talk to me like that. Now people don't want to deal with the facts. They want to deal with their emotions. How can they use that passion you have that they have hidden and go for it in business the way that you did it and you're doing it in baseball?
So I'm gonna backtrack first, and then I'm gonna bring us back forward.
Okay.
I think if you're in a leadership position, one of the most important aspects of being a leader is you have to connect with the people you are charged to lead. And the reason the connectivity is so important is because at some point you're going to have to engage, and the engagement may become confrontational. If you've taken the time to connect, now you have fostered some credibility, some sense of compassion, and a relationship has been formed.
Right.
It's almost, again, I'm going to take this to parenting. If the only time you are talking to your kids passionately is when you're disciplining them, that at some point you're going to have to show them love. So it's a little give and take.
Right.
And the other side of that is having emotional sensitivity, because there are also times that I would go out and talk to the umpire and I'm not yelling and screaming. I'm actually trying to get clarity, or I'm trying to get confirmation on what just happened. And I still may say some things that may get me ejected, but I may say it more so in a tone or in a manner that I really don't want anybody else to even realize that I'm actually giving him a solid piece of my mind.
Right. Okay.
So emotional sensitivity from a business standpoint is very important. And I think you have to understand who you are delivering the message to. And again, in order to understand the who, as a manager, as a president, as a CEO, as a director of operations, you have to make sure that you take the time to connect with the people you are charged to lead. It doesn't matter what entity we're talking about, whether we're talking about a sports team, whether we're talking about a family hierarchy, whether we're talking about a business development, whether we're talking about a leadership building group. At the end of the day, it's about people and it's about relationships.
Yeah, I love that. And Bo, in one of the videos I watched when you were talking to a group of kids, you were talking about leadership, and you mentioned that word a few times here. So I want to touch on that. You mentioned one of the things you said is leadership is the ability to increase the value of those you lead. Now, here's my question about that. I want to talk about when you have multiple people in leadership and then there's a conflict, because I've seen with my own eyes people in leadership are more interested in making people feel good in their weaknesses than actually dealing with the hard facts and truth to help people to become better. So what happens is you have one person that kind of like represents you. They want to make people better. And sometimes in making people better, they have to hear things they don't want to hear, do things they don't want to do. But yet you have this other person that's massaging their weaknesses and constantly rescuing them emotionally and never allowing them to grow. So what happens is everybody thinks they're doing a good job, but they're doing a horrible job and they're not really growing. So help me to understand how, if whether somebody is sitting under that type of leadership or you're that type of leader, how do you balance it out between the person's emotions and then dealing with the facts to go out there and help them to get better and not really become comfortable with where they are?
Well, first of all, again, you've probably heard me say this before. You've probably seen it somewhere. You really should be uncomfortable being comfortable.
Yeah.
Because getting outside of our comfort zone is where growth really happens. So I'll start by saying, from a leadership standpoint, really understanding your job as a leader, I think, is paramount. I think a lot of times, and, you know, this has been said before, I'm going to repeat it. You know, if you really want to find out the character of a man, give him power.
Yeah.
You know, it's understanding my job as a leader is to help each person in which I am charged to share space with in this leadership hierarchy. How can I help them reach their full potential? Because we can be in a group and Steven's potential can be much greater than Michael's potential. And Michael's potential could be much greater than Bo's potential. My job as the leader, I can't put you guys into one category and go, I'm going to lead all three of these men the same way. I have to basically look at, one, your skill sets, your ability to deal with adversity, your ability to deal with multitasking, your ability to deal with failure, your ability to deal with success. And collectively, I have to come up with, okay, how do I best motivate Steven?
Yeah.
And how do I best motivate Michael? How do I best motivate Bo? That's why everybody cannot lead. I mean, people think that, you know, it's just something that you can just put somebody into and everything is just going to work out because you give them the title. Leadership is not about a title.
Yeah.
It's about the actions of being able to help people reach their full potential.
Right. Now, no, and everybody that's listening, make sure you keep this in context because there's a lot of people out there that you can hear talk about leadership. They go into a leadership presentation, but we're talking about Bo. And Bo, as a coach, remember, he coached the Miami Marlins, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Washington Nationals, and Atlanta Braves. You're talking about some of the highest paid athletes, type A personalities, alphas of all kind, where he's having to lead this group. So the leadership information and the tips that you're getting, this comes from a completely different ball game, like literally, where the stakes are extremely high. So let me ask you this. When you have, let's talk about personal leadership because you're leading the team, but in baseball, as in all kinds of team sports, the pitcher has to lead himself. The catcher has to lead himself. First base, second base, third base, shortstop, right field, center field, left field. Everyone has to be a leader of self also. So what about self-leadership and self-honesty?
Well, I think the first thing as a leader, you have to be authentic. And what I mean by being authentic, you can't try to be someone that you're not. And the people you're charged to lead, one, they're gonna ask these questions to themselves every day.
Yeah.
One, can I trust them?
Right.
Two, do he care more about me than he do about himself? And those are two things as a leader, you have to make sure that you are being authentic and that you show the people that you are charged to lead, that you care more about them than you do yourself. I was blessed to have, a great conversation with one of my dear friends in baseball, Derek Jeter, who we all know Derek is known as the captain of the Yankees and, the great teams in which he played on. But Derek and I, was talking. This is when I was managing the Astros, and it was his last season, and we got ready to open up the season, and I wanted to make sure that I gave Derek something that he would remember. So I wanted to give him the lineup card from opening day of his last year. So I basically had him come over. I said, hey, when you finish, I said, stop over in the office before we get ready to come out. So as we sit there and we talk, I said to Derek, I said, I watched you all these years. I said, and it doesn't matter what other supporting cast the Yankees provided to the organization. One constant was that you were always looked upon as the leader. I said, just tell me, I said, as I'm, kind of trying to grow these young guys and really, introduce them to what high level Major League Baseball is all about and how they can bring other people with them. I said, just tell me, how were you able to withstand that responsibility in a city like New York for your entire career? And Derek said something that obviously will stay with me forever, and I've passed this along to many players. He said, Bo, the leader is not always the best player. The leader is not always the guy that is going to get the big hit. The leader is the person that the other 24 guys know that he will put them before himself.
Wow.
He said, now, when you look at my career, he said, I've done a lot. He said, at the same time, he said, I could come out here and if I don't take ground balls, he said, nobody's going to say anything to me. If I don't want to hit, if I don't want to take batting practice, nobody's going to say anything to me. He said, but at the same time, I always wanted to be the standard, not the exception.
I love
so
that.
when you think about that, if you are in a leadership position and you view yourself as the standard, a lot of people make the mistake of getting into a leadership position, and now they think that they have special perks that come with, well, I'm the leader, so I don't have to be on time, or I can show up when I want to, or I can do this because I'm the leader. Well, what happens is you now have people that are watching you. And now when you go to have a conversation with someone about doing something that they should be doing, they can very easily flip that on you and go, well, I mean, I'm only doing it because I saw you do it. So now as a leader, you lost all credibility.
Right.
So, and this is something that I feel really strongly about. So I want to stress this about transformational leaders and how important it is to care for themselves. It's impossible to take care of someone else if you don't take care of yourself.
Right.
Taking care of your physical dimension is a sign of self-respect, your mental growth. You can't be great if you don't work and you don't feel good. So transformational leaders, they eat well, they exercise, and they care for their temples that are their bodies. They spend time in nature. They drink plenty of water. They get rest. They're physically energized each and every day, because as a leader, again, if you're not showing up enthusiastic each and every day, again, that disposition will trickle down and it will affect your team.
Right. And by the way, you're mentioning some things here. And for those that aren't aware, I kind of mentioned it in the beginning. Bo has a book that he wrote recently called Real Life Empowered. It's a 1 year which is 365-day devotional. And it covers 9 core values of whole person development, which you can also look at as the 9 core values of personal leadership development, which includes education, manners, physical activity, open-mindedness, well-balanced nutrition, expression of positive attitudes, relationships, enrichment of spirit, and dedication. And by the way, it's loaded with scripture. So if any of you are looking for a solid way to have a blueprint over the next year, you can pick it up from Amazon. It's rather new. And by the way, because it's new, you can go ahead and leave some reviews and some feedback on there for Bo. But Bo is touching on a few of the things that is actually covered in great depth in that book. So Bo, here's what I want to do. I want to play a little verbal baseball with you. I'm going to pitch you some options on leadership. And then I want you to kind of hit the one that you know from your experience is the best one, and then kind of give us an explanation on why. All right.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. Leading by talking or leading by example?
By example, because at the end of the day, words are only as good as the action. So you can say something. If the action doesn't follow, eventually the words become worthless.
Right.
So, and we've all heard it.
Yeah.
Actions speak louder than words.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, next one. Lead not to hurt people's feelings or lead with honesty?
Lead with honesty. And the reason you want to lead with honesty is the only thing worse, again, when you're leading someone, you're trying to basically help them be their best self.
Yeah.
The only thing worse, in my opinion, than a person with no confidence is a person with false confidence. So if you're leading someone and you're constantly feeding them false confidence, at some point, they're going to realize that they're not good, or what you told them does not have true value to it. And at that point, the relationship is fragmented forever.
I love that. I love that. Say that again. False confidence is worse than low confidence.
You're better off being transparent and candid with and again, I say this about leadership, and again, because I do leadership training, it's a mistake, a common mistake that's made as a leader. What you don't want to do is point out something that someone is doing wrong, but then don't give them the tools, or an avenue of how to do it right.
Right.
Anybody that come to you and they, from a corrective criticism standpoint, they're going to point out something, that you're doing. But one of the biggest mistakes leaders make is that they ignore the negativity within their team, company, or organization. They allow it to breed and grow, and it eventually sabotages them. So it's almost like micro inequities. It's like it starts out as, one small little thing, and then it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And now before you know it, you have an avalanche on your hand. Right. You're better off being open, authentic, being honest, and not to the point. This is, I've run a lot of businesses, and, obviously, being put in leadership position of developing teams. That's why I'm going to go back to it being about the people. And it's about, if you have the right person, they can be bad at something, or they can make a mistake and totally mess up a deal. If you know you got the right person, that's where you take advantage of the teachable moment. You're not talking to them to correct them and fire them. You're talking to them to correct them, to make them better as they move forward.
Yeah. And one of the things you talk about a lot, Bo, is education. So before I pitch you, I have 3 more things I want to pitch you, but I want to kind of expand on this. Not everybody's going to play pro baseball, regardless of how bad they want to play. So the team is selecting a certain number of men of certain quality, which I'm sure kind of goes beyond just their ability to hit balls, catch balls, and run fast. So what role does the team members play in selecting your team and in hiring the right people to be able to have that temperament, that emotional fitness, and that mental wellness to be able to deal with an environment that can be intense at times? So I guess the question is, how important is it to also have the right people in addition to having the right leaders?
It's paramount. You can have too many chefs in the kitchen.
Right.
Whenever you talk about a team, and when you have a team, that means obviously different roles exist. Okay. But the one thing about sports as it relates to team is everyone has to be willing to give of themselves. If you have a group of men that are willing to give of themselves, those make the best teams. Because you can't have, let's just say you have a team and you only have, 5 guys that's willing to give of themselves. And the other 20 feel like, I'm a star and I'm going to always be the man. You never know who's going to be in a position that need to give of themselves.
Right.
So that has to be a dynamic that's created within the culture of your team. Now, as a leader, that's not a culture that you're going to build. And many leaders make this mistake. Your job as the leader is to build the people, and the people will build the culture. So my job is to make sure that I'm mentoring and building up the men. So when the men get into the culture, they create the culture in which we are already building with our independent synergistic relationships. They now become the attitude and the culture. And I'll give you an example in baseball. And I've always said this: if you want to find out the identity of a baseball team, the only thing you have to do.
What's that?
Watch them run the bases.
No, really.
Watch them run the bases.
Why's that?
It will tell you everything you need to know about the team, the culture, and if it happens as a manager and as a leader of the team, right away whether or not you have the right players.
Well, I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued.
I'll take you back to a situation when I was in Washington and we finished with the best record in baseball.
Nice.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And we had a situation where a young player came up, okay, hit a ground ball to the shortstop, and he basically jogged to first base. Okay. Now he was out. He was out. He was gonna be out. And now I'm at third base and I'm looking into the dugout and I'm looking intently because this was a breakpoint moment for our team. We were really good. This was a young player that we was expecting to help our team win a division title, and he had an out-of-body experience. Okay. Before he made it to the top step, 2 of the leaders of the team met him at the top step and said, "Sit down, young man. Look here. We don't do that here. When you hit that ball, you run until you're out. You never know what's going to happen."
Wow. I
came back into the dugout and I was talking to Davey Johnson, who was the manager at the time. And I turned to Davey Johnson and I told him, I said, "We got a chance to win a championship with this team." And he said, "Why?" I said, "Because of what just happened." Not one coach said anything to the player. That's when you know you have the right culture.
I love that. Wow. I love that. Yeah, man, that's powerful. I hope everybody is capturing that. The team, they embodied the culture and that winning attitude that they were literally leading each other, so much so that the managers and the coaches, no one else had to say anything because the players were checking each other.
Yes. And again, as the coaching staff, or as the manager, as the leader, you know, I can go back to another situation where, and this was the first day, this same season, this was the first day of base running in spring training. And I did a segment with our team about secondary leads and the importance of getting a good secondary lead. And what I stressed to them was, in baseball, plays are going to be bang, bang. You may get a play at home plate, you know, guy slides in and he's safe by inches, or he's out by one step or 1 foot. And inadvertently, what I did was I pulled some video footage from years before, because I believe in society today, a lot of things are visual for people. You can sit and you can talk all day, but a lot of times the visual and being able to see really resonates and it brings it home.
Right.
So I took the time to have our video guys put together just 3 or 4 short clips of really good secondary leads and a guy scoring from first base on a double, a bad secondary lead, and a guy being out at home plate on a double. And I showed that to the team. And I said to them, I said, it's very easy to fall asleep or have a mental lapse and not take a secondary lead, because it all takes place before the ball is put in play. So if you are out, it would take somebody going back to the play before it started to actually realize what happened. I said, I don't want to have to ever go back to a video and question whether or not we took a good secondary lead. So as fate would have it, we end up winning an extra inning game, man on first base, double to the gap. He scores the game-winning run. All right?
Yeah.
2 innings prior to that, it was a tie game now. They hit a double to the gap. We did a perfect relay and threw the guy out at home plate. Ask me, didn't I go grab both of those videos and look at both of them? Their guy, bad secondary lead or no secondary lead, out at home plate. Our guy, great secondary lead, safe, ball game, game over. Now, many people would just look at the play and they go, wow, that was a great relay. They got that guy out at the plate. Many people will look at the game-winning double and they go, man, he got the game-winning double. The Nationals won the game. The next day, I brought in a couple of our leaders, and I had the video guy. I had it set up, and he played both of them. And a man to a man, all 4 of them left out of that room, and they said, Bo, that game was won the first day of base running in spring training.
Wow.
That's when the credibility of what you're saying, it backs it. So now you have their attention because they're seeing it live and in motion, and they go, this is real, man. So now if somebody don't do it that way, as the coach, I don't have to say anything because they've seen it work. They know if you don't do it, you're lessening our chance at winning.
Right. Wow. So, I mean, actually, the third ball I wanted to pitch you, I already know the answer is going to be to it, but you've actually given a lot of information right now that supports it. So the thing is it high standards or no standards? You have to have standards. If this is, and I'm not even one for a lot of rules because I think rules are made to either be broken or try to be bent. Okay. Standards are made to be met. Yeah. I love that.
And when you have a standard of operation, what happens is people have to get rid of their own thought of what the rule means to them. A standard means that this is the standard in which we have to operate under.
Yeah.
And I have to make sure that I reach that standard each and every day.
Yeah. So here's the thing. In baseball, you have your pro athletes. Is it, hey, we just go to practice to make sure we have the plays down and that we're good to go for game time? Or is there this constant learning? Are the standards so high as athletes? Cause you mentioned base running, right? When you mentioned base running, it's like, dude, they've been playing baseball for years. They know how to run the bases, but do pro athletes obsess over the idea that, hey, it doesn't matter how good I was at the last game or how well we were last year. Every day we're looking to become better as individual players and better as a team. So they're constantly working on their craft, whether it's batting, whether it's pitching, whether it's running the bases. How does that look from the pro athlete standpoint? Hey, they're already in the pros. They got the deal. They got the 7 or the 8 figures. I mean, they're there. What changes and how, from the standard standpoint, how do they operate to make sure they remain the best that they can be?
I'll say this. There are 2 types of players. There's the player that's going to show up each and every day, and their goal and their mission is to be the best that they can be every day. And those are the and their standards are probably going to be higher than any standard that anybody else can put on them.
I love that.
Okay.
Yes.
Then you have the players that I call the average to mediocre players that the game itself will wash them out because they're going to believe in that attitude in which you just discussed of, well, I'm in the major leagues. I mean, my skills are what they are. I've always been good. What happens is the game will become way too fast for them, and they will not reach their full potential, and they will find themselves out of the game.
Getting cut, huh?
Yes. And I, when I was managing the Astros, and the first spring training that we brought Carlos Correa to spring training, and I already knew that this guy was a special player, but he came to me and he said, Skip, he said, my goal is to be one of the best players in the history of Major League Baseball. And I said, Carlos, you have every chance to be that. He said, what do I have to do? I said, the time in which I've spent around really great players, okay, and I've played with several Hall of Famers. I said, what I noticed right away is that their desire to be great never wavered. They showed up every day with the notion that they wanted to be the best player on the field. And he looked at me. He said, if I ever show up and I don't display that, he goes, I want you to tell me. Is that kind of, because application is the true definition of knowing. Right. Because how many times have you said something to someone and the first thing out of their mouth is, oh, no, I know.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
You're saying, because if you're telling me, think about this. If you're telling me but you're still doing it wrong, the only thing I'm left to believe is that you don't care.
Wow, so, say that again. Say that again. I want everybody to get that to process, because people say they know. Go ahead. Say that again, Bo. Say that again.
Application is the true definition of knowing. Because if you're telling me that you know, but then you're still doing it wrong, the only thing I'm left to believe, only thing I'm left to believe is you really don't care about doing it right.
Wow, I love that.
I would rather someone tell me, you know what, Coach, I really don't know. Can you help me?
Right.
I can deal with that, because now I can say this is a teachable moment. Let me tell him exactly what the standard is here. Yeah. And from a coaching standpoint, I'll be remiss if I didn't say this. And this goes for all aspects of life. Okay. Never make exceptions during the preparation of the things that matter. Okay. And I have to say the things that matter, that can decide the outcome of a game. Never make exceptions to those things because you'll look up one day and you'll have a team full of exceptions.
Wow.
Because if you start to make exceptions during the preparation, what ends up happening is that exception is going to show up in the game when you least expect it. And you're going to be to blame because you actually made the exception for them.
And that kind of goes against the high standards, because why have standards if all of a sudden you're going to make all these exceptions to what the standards are, right?
Exactly. You have to, again, and good players, you know, I'm going to tell, I've shared this story on other platforms. I'm going to share it again today with you. And I believe Jose Altuve, hands down, should be the MVP in the American League. I think he was the best player in baseball this year. But I'm going to go back to the first year when I was managing the Astros and a situation that happened with Jose and myself.
Okay.
He was in the middle of his contract negotiation, which, you know, those things can weigh on a player, especially in season. You're talking about a player who was making the league minimum, and all of a sudden he's sitting and he's looking at a, you know, $15, $16, $17 million contract. And he's trying to decide, do I want to take this deal or do I not take this deal? So finally, you know, he takes the deal. And, you know, with a new contract like that comes, you know, different things where, I mean, he wanted to buy himself a new car. He wanted to, you know, upgrade his wardrobe and so forth and so on. Well, while all of this was taking place, you know, I noticed some things happening on the field. Okay, that was not championship-like. So we're in Chicago. Jose Altuve hits a ground ball to the shortstop and gives less than a Jose Altuve effort to first base. Now, as the manager, I had to make a decision, okay? If I let that happen, it sends a message to the other 24, because at this point, we hadn't built a culture that was ready to withstand one of its leaders, or perceived to be leaders at the time. We hadn't built a culture where any of the other 24 guys would say anything to him. But they're not walking around there with their eyes closed either.
Right.
So that responsibility now fell into my lap or our coaching staff lap. And there comes a point in time where sometimes, even as the leader, if the culture is not where it should be, you're going to have to step in. So I went back to the hotel that night and I thought about it and I said, okay, tomorrow I'm going to take care of this. And I'm going to send a resounding message, not just to Altuve, but to the rest of the team, that there is not the standard in which we're going to operate.
Right. So
I told the bench coach, we normally post the lineup as soon as we get to the park. I said, do not post the lineup until Altuve get here. He said, oh, okay. He said, why not? I said, I'll talk to you guys about it afterwards. I want to talk to Altuve first. Because one thing I wasn't going to do, I wasn't going to post the lineup and not play him. And then now he comes to the park, whereas obviously he's our best player and he plays every day. Now I got to deal with why he's not playing. So I wanted to forewarn him my intentions, give him a chance to respond, and tell him some of the other things that was on my mind.
Right.
So he gets to the park, you know, he comes in, the bench coach say, hey, Skipper want to see you. So he come in, I said, Jose, sit down. And I said, you know what happened last night? And he immediately realized, he was like, I know, I'm sorry. It's not going to happen again. He goes, you know, today, he said, I went shopping. I went and got a new watch. I got a new backpack. So he talks about his day, what he was doing. So I said, sit down. I said, let me tell you something. I don't like the new guy. I said, actually, I like the old guy. The old guy played hard. I said, this new guy, the new guy is not playing hard. I said, so what I want you to do is I want you to sit here today and figure out whether or not you want to be the old guy or you want to be the new guy. And if you're going to be the new guy, you just better make sure that the new guy play hard like the old guy. And I said, so you're not going to play, and we'll deal with the media when they get here. So he turned around, walked out of my office, and I said some more choice words. He came right back in, and he said, "Bo, I really want to play." He goes, "I'm so sorry. That would never happen again." He said, I realized I made a mistake, and now as the leader, I got to either exercise compassion or I got to determine if the discipline of me just bringing him into the office sent a resounding message strong enough to get my point across, or do I need to continue on? So he sat back down, and I went to the next step of the teachable moment. I said, you are a leader on this team, whether you like it or not. I said, part of it has to do with the fact that you're our best player. I said, but if we're going to set a standard of playing championship baseball, it's going to have to start with you. I go, if someone else see you do that, what's going to stop them from doing it? I said, more importantly, what's going to stop you when somebody else does something like that and you go to talk to them? What's going to stop them from saying to you, how can you talk to me when I saw you do it?
Right.
I said, so that's what makes this so important. And he sat there. He said, Bo, I'm sorry. It's not going to happen again. He said, please let me play. I promise you it's never going to happen again. So I recanted my thought. I put him in the lineup. He goes 5 for 5.
Wow.
We won the game. But more importantly, from that day in Chicago to today, Jose Altuve has the most hits in Major League Baseball since that day.
Wow.
Now, I don't take credit for it.
Right.
I tell the story more so to speak to how leadership actually works. And the final part to this story, which makes it even greater, Altuve didn't speak to me probably for about a week and a half after that.
That's interesting.
Because I said to him, I'm going to play you, but you know what you're going to have to do for me? You're going to have to apologize to all 24 of your teammates. That's the only way I'm playing you. So he had to go out there and do his part. I played him, sent the message to the whole team. Altuve then gets home that offseason. And he told his dad what happened. And told his dad, he said, he talked mean to me and, told me he didn't like, the new guy. And his dad told him, he said, Jose, when you see Coach Porter, I said, I want you to tell him how sorry you are and that you love him. He said, because what that man did, he did it out of love. The first day of spring training of 2014, Jose Altuve walks into my office almost in tears. And he said, Bo, I want to apologize. He said, I went home and I talked to my dad about what happened. And my dad told me that man loved you. He said, there's only 2 people that ever talked to me the way you talked to me that day. My dad and you. He said, and I'm never going to let you down ever again.
Wow.
That's a powerful, powerful story of parenting and coaching.
Yeah, I love
because
that.
Sometimes you have to tell them what they don't want to hear.
Yes. Wow. Now let me ask you this. What do you think is the character difference in the person that makes the difference between, wow, you know what? Because of the way you talk to me, I really get that you love me, versus the person that's perpetually offended by the way you talk to them and they just can't get over it.
You have to tell yourself as a leader, sometimes it's just not your bag to carry.
Yeah.
But it's your bag to add value to. But you may not get to reap the benefits.
Yeah.
And we have to accept that. You can be 100% right in what you're telling the person, but at the end of the day, a message is only as good as the receiver. And
Hold on. Say that again, because here's how a lot of people operate. A lot of people put the communication on just the person that is saying it. That's why somebody's talking, they'd be like, don't talk to me like this. Don't talk to me like that. But say that again, what you just said about the receiver. I love that. Say that again.
The message is only as good as the receiver.
I love that.
Because again, it's almost like, I'll use this analogy. Let's say you have a school teacher that is the hardest teacher in the school, and she demands excellence, or he demands excellence, and, you know, they give you a lot of work. They really push you to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that teacher is absent for a day. Okay. And a substitute comes in. And now the substitute is only there for a day. And the only thing the substitute want to do is enjoy the day, not have any controversy. And they know that they're not responsible for your long-term success. So the substitute goes, oh no, just be quiet. Don't cause any problems. You guys, you know, have free time, do what you want to do. If the kid goes home and let's say the parent goes, so how was your day at school? Oh, today was awesome. So what did y'all do? Yeah, we did a couple worksheets and no, but it was great. Oh, why was it? So, who was the teacher today? Oh no, you know, such and such, the teacher was absent. We had this great teacher. And as the parent, you're sitting, you're going, what's so great about this teacher? Well, that teacher just let them do what they want to do. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people mistake, you know, transformational leadership with, well, this person is pushing me to my limits. Well, they're trying to help you transform into being your best self. And again, that's why I go back to saying you should be uncomfortable being comfortable.
Right, right. And to that point, I remember I walked into an environment of a company that had no structure, and I went to, and basically people were just, you know, doing whatever it is they wanted to do. And I was all about, we had to have structure, systems, and processes. And pretty much everybody fought against that. And I became the villain, and I became the bad guy, and I became basically the devil, because I'm fighting for what works in business, and they're fighting for the lowest standard of being able to wing it, be wishy-washy, and do whatever it is they want to do. So, I mean, I love what it is you're saying. I love it.
Well, yes. I mean, and again, when I say it's not our bag to carry sometime, I've had players that have called me, you know, after the fact and just said, I want to thank you. And I say, for what? They say, I'm so sorry that I didn't get it when you were trying to give it to me, but I finally got it. Mm. And again, that's powerful. Your job is to basically just do the best job.
Yeah.
And again, the message is only as good as the receiver.
Man, I love that.
And the mental space that they're in when you're delivering the message. So it may be a year from now. It may be, you know, 2 months from now that it finally, you know, connects and they go, wow, okay, that's what, you know, Stephen was talking about, or that's what Bo was talking about.
Yeah.
We as people that are put into influential positions, we can't lessen, you know, our ability to lead and deliver based on an audience that's not ready to receive.
Right. Yeah. Wrong audience. You're right. I love it. Man, I could talk to you, Bo, for hours. But let me ask you this, Bo, as we get ready to wrap this up. What is the number one lesson you learned in sports that everyone that's listening can take and apply to their lives?
I said this in my book, The End Game. Sports is an institution of higher learning. It's an education that it doesn't exist in any classroom anywhere. Because when you look at all of the components of sports, I think, and if I had to point to probably the number one, and it will probably just be, you know, fortitude and understanding, you know, how important it is to be able, because life is not just always going to be peaches and cream. And when you look at successful people,
yep,
the reason they're successful is not because everything has worked out. The reason they're successful is because they've learned how to overcome failure. And this is kind of the failure acronym that I, kind of a mantra in which I've created for myself. And I talk about this in my motivational speaking topic, how I failed into real excellence. Yeah. And discover why failure is the key ingredient to becoming a champion and conquering real excellence. I say I developed fortitude. I was willing to adapt. I used my imagination to dream big. I learned from everyone with whom I shared space. Enthusiasm was a choice I made daily. And I realized that discipline in all areas of your life is the common denominator to real excellence.
Wow.
So learning to deal with failure is probably one of the best lessons that we can learn in sports. Because when you think about, a person who's playing sports, you're going to strike out.
Yep.
You're going to make errors.
Right.
You're going to lose the game.
Right.
And you have to get back up, and you got to find more enthusiasm, more energy, and mentally you have to continue to believe that you're going to be successful.
Right. And you're no stranger to that, because I think it was back in August 2014. Well, one of the things you say that the professional coaches know is that they're hired to be fired. But
absolutely,
you talk about, I think it was in 2014 where you driving home, the team is doing great, and you get the call that you never want to get. And I think the way you worded it was it's like a 20-minute drive felt like it was 2 hours because they called you to fire you.
Exactly.
So
yes.
how did you handle that and persevere and bounce back? Because you're talking about that being important. How did you deal with that? I mean, look, you're a pro coach. Like, the team isn't going backwards. The team is going forward. And then they call you and be like, "Hey, Bo, man, we got to let you go."
And again, I think that's one of the valuable lessons of sports, is that you learn how to persevere. You learn that you can do everything right. Think about this. You can do everything right in a game and still lose.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sports teaches you that.
Wow.
If you get everything right in a classroom, you're going to pass the class. There's never a point in a class or academic environment where you do everything right and you fail.
Let me ask you something. Do you think in some weird way that may set up a false expectation in our lives that, hey, I'm doing all this stuff right, but I'm not winning? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I had this conversation with a friend of mine who is, the chairman of a Fortune 500 company. And he said that basically he wrote out a description to their HR department. And one of the criterias for any new hire is that they had to have some background in competitive sports. Whether it was high school, college. He said he found out over the years that his best employees were employees that had some form of competitive team background.
That's interesting.
And obviously their business had nothing to do with sports. But when you start to talk about the characteristics that are built from playing sports, you can't find it in any classroom. You can't find it in any classroom, and it actually filters into all other sectors of your life.
Yeah, because it seems like the intangibles that you get from playing sports, that mental toughness, that perseverance, that resiliency, all those intangibles translate to, because it becomes a part of your psyche. It just becomes a part of your DNA. You are that person when you start to go into business. So is that one of the reasons why he's like, look, I need the mindset of an athlete to be able to work in this business?
Yes, absolutely. And again, you go back to what I talked about when we talked about team. And the best teams are teams that have a group of people that are willing to give of themselves. When you find yourself even in a business hierarchy, if you are in a business hierarchy with a group of people and everyone is willing to give of themselves for the betterment of the team, those are going to be the most successful businesses.
Wow. So, Bo, how can people connect with you? I know you have the Grow with Bo podcast, right?
The Grow with Bo podcast is coming in January 2018. We're
awesome.
Excited about that. They can go to www.boporterenterprise.com and they can subscribe for the podcast. And, you can also leave a message there. There's my speaking topics that are on www.boporterenterprise.com. We have the Empowered Summit coming up December the 15th here in Houston. We are excited about the 9 presenters that's going to speak to the Empowered acronym in which you discussed earlier in the show. And again, Stephen, I thank you for the platform in which you provided today to just share different things that have been impactful in my life. And I enjoy being on the show.
This is going to be awesome. And I will definitely be seeing you in Houston in December at the Empowered Summit. All the links to Bo and how you can get in touch with Bo and follow Bo on social media and get copies of his book from Amazon will be on the show notes. Be sure to go into iTunes and rate the show. Give Bo 5 stars. Leave your comment. Bo, I'm going to leave the last word to you, but I want to leave it based on something I read in the End Game. You said that one thing you learned in sports is that quitting was not an acceptable action. I'm going to leave the last word with you for this show. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, the one thing I'll say, and this, I'm going to try to keep it short. I had a life-altering situation that happened when I was 7 years old. We would play baseball in the church parking lot. And for those of you that don't understand, growing up in Newark, New Jersey, we didn't have a baseball field, so we played in the church parking lot. And the poles, the light poles, we used the light poles as our fair foul poles, or you can say foul line. Obviously, they were not in direct line with the box, which was home plate. So trying to really tell whether a ball was fair or foul was probably difficult. Well, long story short, we're playing, it's bases loaded, last inning. I hit what I thought was a game-winning grand slam home run. Well, the other team called it foul. Now, remember, I'm 7 years old now, okay? So they called it foul. We argue about it. One of the things in which, because we didn't have umpires, we didn't have instant replay like we have in baseball now, we would basically, whenever there was a dispute, we had to flip a coin, and obviously the coin flip will determine who won the argument. So we flipped the coin. My team lose. Me, in my 7-year-old mind, I am hurt, angered, and believe that they cheated. So I grabbed my bat, grabbed my glove, I quit. I walk down the street, sit on my porch, I'm crying. My mom comes outside. She's like, "What are you crying for? I thought you were down the street playing with the guys." And they cheated. I'm not playing with them anymore. I hit a home run. They called it foul. So I go into my whole 7-year-old mind of explaining this story. And I'm thinking, my mom is going to be empathetic with me and she's going to, kind of lift me up. And my mom said, "So you quit?" And I'm like, no, I didn't quit. I'm just not playing with them anymore. She said, "Yes, you did. You quit." And she goes, "Get back down there and finish that game." She goes, "I'm your mom and I will always forgive you." She said, "But those guys that you play with, they're not going to want to play with a quitter because they don't know if and when ever you're going to quit again." She said, "Let me tell you something about quitting. The only thing quitting will ever do for you is that you would realize, or you would never realize, whether or not you were good enough to succeed. But if you give it your all, at least at the end of the day, you have an answer. Now get back down there and finish that game." When I say that resonated in my mind, that the only thing quitting can assure you of is that you will never know if you were good enough.
Thanks for listening to the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll pass along our web address, successsculptingshow.com, to your friends and colleagues. Be sure to check out our archives of previous podcasts and check the schedule to join us for our next live streaming Success Sculpting Show webcast. This has been a Success Sculpting Incorporated production. Join us next time for another edition of the Success Sculpting Show with Stephen Pierce, and tell your friends.